I am Mónica Fernando Torres Salas, and my research is about how socioeconomic status affect education equity and the education quality, as well as the academic performance of Mexican students. Mexico shows inequity within its public education system, as well as poor education quality, which might be affected by socioeconomic differences between students. According to the third regional comparative and explanatory study of 2013 carried out by the UNESCO, which measured the achievements and education quality of students from Latin America and the Caribbean, including Mexico, showed how students coming from a higher socioeconomic level had a better school performance than the ones that were below, and that private schools also offered a higher quality environment for learning. The variables of the research were as the independent variables were the socioeconomic factors and the socioeconomic status. The dependent variables were education quality, education equity, and academic performance of Mexican students. The discrete variable was the school attendance and dropout. The ordinal variable was the academic ranking, considered as school performance, and the nominal unpredictable variable was the socioeconomic status. Justification. Well, since every Mexican has the right to receive education, this should be accessible and of quality, which, according to the Mexican National Institute for Evaluation of Education, quality education requires adequate spaces and infrastructure. However, schools localized in rural areas and living under social inequities had poor infrastructure and shortage of materials and textbooks needed for the course. Poverty is one of the main social and economic factors that influence Mexican education, but they might be more. So identifying how this and other factors affect education can help the government and education institutions to improve the system and get the resources needed to eliminate inequalities and disparities in education, as well as improving the quality of free education. This is important. According to the UNESCO data, education enables citizens to contribute to the social and economic development of the country by giving them the development of critical thinking and major opportunities, as well as the proper knowledge of the rights and obligations as citizens. So it's a win-win. The research question is how socioeconomic status affect education equity and the education quality as well as academic performance of Mexican students. While the hypothesis is that since education inequity might be affected by socioeconomic factors, identifying them can help to the application of policies and practices focused on providing more equitable and accessible educational opportunities. But what is socioeconomic status? According to the American Psychological Association, socioeconomic status is the social standing or class of an individual or group. It is often measured as a combination of education, income, and occupation. So, as the average socioeconomic level of a school rises, so does the learning they reach in subjects like reading and natural sciences, according to the UNESCO. The report section of associated factors of the third regional comparative and explanatory study carried out by the UNESCO in 2013 showed that learning achievements were related to the socioeconomic level of the students' families, being that precarious socioeconomic and material conditions were associated with lower results on every evaluated grade and discipline. So, based on the report, it can be seen a relation of how the social status and income of a family may affect the school performance of Mexican students. This because of fewer resources and poor educational infrastructure that are present in schools in poorer communities. And another factor that affects education is the inequity within the education system. This causes educational gaps, even within the Mexican public education, between students from urban schools and private schools, in favor of students from a private school. Students coming from well-accommodated families tend to go to these private schools, while students coming from poorer houses go to communitarian schools. This is added to the goods distribution inequality within the Mexican education system, where public schools from urban areas have better operation conditions due to major resources than community schools. Methodology. The materials and methods used during this research were a laptop, a cell phone, and a survey. The experimental design started with obviously the hypothesis, then do a research background, then designing and applying the survey to measure the population perception and experience with this topic, collect the data and analyze it, and then write the conclusions. The results. 40 people took the survey, 11, representing the 27.5%, were from ages between 27 and 59, and 29 people, representing the 72.5%, were from ages 15 to 18, being teenagers. The 90% of people that took the survey assisted to a private school, and 10% to a public school. 95% thought that they had received a quality education, while the remaining 5% didn't. 87.5% had changed school due to socioeconomic factors, and 12.5% haven't. 95% had a monthly income measured than the 4,000 to 9,000 pesos, considered as a low income. At the open-ended questions, people answered that some answers were that socioeconomic factors, culture, infrastructure, government investment, and lack of resources are some of the factors that affect Mexican education the most. The 90% of people that took the survey assisted to a private school, from which only one person from there had to interrupt or stop their studies due to socioeconomic factors, while from the 10% that answered the survey, assisted to a public school, where both of them had to drop out of school due to socioeconomic factors, which may suggest that people coming from private schools are less likely to drop out of school. 57.5% thought that they could have had a better quality education if their socioeconomic status was higher, while 35% thought that maybe they could but are not sure, and this might not be because of the teachers, because 70% of the people thought that the better qualified teachers work at private schools. 92.5% thought that schools have less expectations on students coming from a lower socioeconomic status, and the people at the open-ended questions answered that socioeconomic factors, culture, infrastructure, and government investment affect Mexican education the most. As a conclusion, the study showed the perception of the education quality of Mexican students, where the majority are teenagers coming from a private school, recognizing that people who can afford education outside of the public Mexican education system have better quality education because of better infrastructure, equipment, and quantity of students. The study will need more answers from a more diverse group, considering factors for school dropout and its relation to socioeconomic status, and more indicators that measure what it is quality education, the education performance, as well as the socioeconomic status of the participants.